Then the stomach pains began. When my period eventually came, the bleeding would be so heavy and painful, I would just wonder. I never had such experience prior to this. Hello and welcome to the On Air Book Club. My name is Titilayo Oyinson, and the book club is coming to you as a podcast on ABR. Now, for those of you who are not aware, I'm a huge fan of books and reading. I read books of all shapes and sizes on all topics and genres. I just love to read. And I would like to encourage you to read and then proceed to read some more. All right, now our guest for today is Toyin Lolu Ogunmade. Now, she's the author of Mom at Last, and we're going to be talking to her in just a minute. But I want to talk to you a bit about the book Mom at Last and how much of an impact it's had on quite a few people. Now, this particular book is one that you can't really judge by just looking at the cover. You have to go a lot deeper. As Toyin was diagnosed with severe Asherman syndrome following a fibroid surgery, medically it was certified that she would not be able to conceive, but help came through gestational surrogacy in faraway India. Now she works with other families going through conception challenges. Apart from sharing her story on many media channels, she has set up Precious Conceptions, a holistic family building consultancy that provides support to intending parents. She's put together a book on her 13-year journey to becoming a mom. She did become a mom at last. Now I'm going to be taking a chapter from this particular book, and it's chapter 2. Page 16. We celebrated our first wedding anniversary and it was time to make babies. Yay! So we started trying. It was supposed to be fun, wasn't it? Yeah, right. 2 things happened simultaneously. My periods became funny. They refused to be regular. It didn't bother me in the least because I had experienced that in my teens. They would be late for months and then appear at odd times. Sometimes I would wear sanitary towels for days on end before they showed up. But this time, apart from the skipping periods, I grew bloated. I had milk in my breasts. My ankles became swollen and tender to touch. It was horrid. Then the stomach pains began. When my period eventually came, the bleeding would be so heavy and painful, I would just wonder. I never had such experience prior to this. I would climb trees during my period and stand on my head, and no one would know I was on my period. I knew people who had terrible period pains and cramps that would last as many as 3 days, and I would feel sorry for them. Now, it was happening to me. The annoying thing about the missing periods was that they gave me false hopes of pregnancy. I started seeing the doctor regularly, a Christian man who had been my husband's family physician for years. He also had a visiting consultant gynecologist in his hospital. I did not get to see that gynecologist until 5 years down the line. It was discovered I had multiple fibroids, but I was informed that they would not stop me from conceiving. The pain I was experiencing was supposedly from the degeneration of the fibroids, and I felt that was a good thing. I would bear the pain and hope they degenerate. In November 2000, I missed my period again for 6 weeks running. I was eating like a starved girl. I felt I was pregnant, but the test was negative. 3 days after the pregnancy test, I started bleeding. I felt, welcome. But it was unbelievably excruciating. After a few days, I felt my cervix open and I was dilated and bleeding profusely. It was like being in labor. On the 7th day, I simply could not bear it anymore. I was silently screaming in my head and decided to see our doctor, who ordered a scan. The sonographer said, "If your pregnancy test reads negative like you said, then I don't know what this is. There's something in your womb that wants to come out. It is either a mole, a pregnancy gone crazy, or something I don't know. At this point, I was terrified. Something was in my womb, and it was not a baby. To cut it short, I went through a DNC. Until today, we could not confirm what it was. My doctor said it was fetal remains, a missed abortion. My cervix was soft and dilated, and this thing inside my womb would have expelled itself one day. So the hunt for a baby started. My period would disappear for up to 3 months, and I would have pregnancy symptoms, but no baby. I was severely disappointed month in, month out. I found solace in my sister's baby, Tomiwa, who was born on November 29th, 2000, a week after my birthday. And that was chapter 2 of Mom at Last, written by Toyin Lolu Ogunmade, as read by myself, Titilayo Onyinson. Thank you so much for listening. This is the On Air Book Club podcast, and it's a pleasure to have you here, Toyin.
Thank you, Titi.
Thank you for coming to share your story.
Thank you, Titi.
You put together this piece, and I know you heard this piece from me reading it to you. How did that feel?
It took me back in memory, like I was reliving that period again. And I was like, really, I went through all of that. And I'm here sharing the experience. Yeah. So it's good to talk about it.
God be praised. You are here, you are alive, you are well. And you're able to come through that and share your story as well to help others.
Yes.
Now, just before we started the show, you received a call from someone who wanted some information about surrogacy.
Yes.
And this is a whole new thing for a lot of Nigerians to bring their minds or connect their minds with. People have sort of disconnected from it in such a way that they feel it's a foreign concept.
Yes.
It's not something Africans do.
Yes. That's the assumption. So you can imagine what it was like for me 10, 11 years ago when I was faced with this option. So if information is still a bit scarce now, these days of the internet and social media, so you take yourself back to what it was like in 2009 when I was walking in this direction, and there was just nobody to talk to, nobody to sit down with and say, okay, what's your experience about this thing? But funny enough, there was surrogacy in Nigeria at that time.
Of course.
But no one was talking about it. So I was in the dark. I didn't know what to do, where to go. And so when I was going through the process, I decided I was going to put my experience down and then help other families, later on, go through this successfully. Okay.
But it's heartwarming that you've been able to use your experience to help other people. But then I really want us to talk a little bit about what really happened during the process of becoming a surrogate mom. So I know that in terms of documentation, things you were required to have. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Okay, I had my surrogacy in India, and it's a different ball game entirely, because now you're looking at medical tourism and you're looking at surrogacy in a foreign land.
Of course.
And in India then, it was regularized. It was a matter of the police. And so for every surrogacy arrangement that are done properly, you have to involve the police. So we needed to have a contract, and the contract was to be done both in English and then in the language of the surrogate mother, so that they're sure she understands what she's signing into. Her old husband also had to give his consent. We both appeared before a notary public who interviewed her and asked her 1,000,001 questions in their language before she signed.
Okay.
And then when we did all of that, we had to go and register it at the police commissioner's office and declare that, I'm going through surrogacy.
Okay.
And this person is my surrogate mother. And I'm in this hospital. And I want a visa extension for so long a time. And the police also got involved. They got to the hospital I was, just to be sure that, you know, my story is added up. And when the whole thing was over, and I wanted to take the children out, bring them back to Nigeria, the surrogate had to give her consent.
Wow.
So we all had to go to the police commissioner's office again, and they asked her if we treated her correctly, if we treated her right, if we paid her what we promised, and all of that. And they were talking on and on in their language, but because we had done it properly, and I had treated her right, I didn't have any worries or any fears that she will say anything that was wrong.
Okay.
And we were given the exit papers and we left. So when after we signed the contract, it was pretty easy going on from there. There was nothing else expected from us.
From the time that you made the decision that yes, I want a surrogate, to the time you were able to take your babies home, what was that time frame?
It took 2 years.
2 years.
Yes.
So that meant multiple visits to India.
I stayed in India for 2 years.
Oh,
I lived there for 2 years.
Wow.
Yes, because we went through 3 cycles of IVF.
So the IVF was also done there?
Yes.
Okay.
I've never done IVF anywhere else apart from. So I had 3 cycles of IVF.
Okay.
Incidentally, with 3 different surrogate mothers. The first one failed, the second one failed. It was the third one that worked. So with each of the surrogates, we went through contracts. But we didn't, for the first 2, we didn't involve the police because they didn't get pregnant.
Okay.
But the moment the third one got pregnant, we involved the police in the arrangement, and that made it, easy for us to do.
Now, physically for you, did they have to extract your eggs?
Yes.
Okay.
So my eggs were taken, for all the 3 cycles. So I had to go through fresh IVF cycle every single time because, the first 2 cycles didn't work. I didn't have enough embryos in storage. My eggs were not responding well enough. I mean, my ovaries didn't respond well enough, and I didn't have good enough quality eggs. But for the 3rd cycle, after trying everything
over again,
changing my lifestyle, my diet, everything, so I got a better ovarian response, and we got good quality eggs. So we went ahead and we transferred, and we were successful. So my eggs were used all the 3 times, and that's why my children look exactly like me. Even though children, because I have twins, even though I used an Indian surrogate, they didn't take any genetic matter from her at all.
That's actually been a concern for quite a lot of people. Them taking genetic material from the actual mother, the mother that carries the baby or babies, and of course also health background, the health background and medical history of the mother.
Yes.
There are those, and then of course there are the fetish sides to these as well, that, because we're on a podcast, we can actually mention the kind of myths that surround all these things. I'm wondering, what are the funniest things you've heard from people who approached you in terms of the fetish and myth side of things?
Because I was in India, a lot of people didn't know what I was going through.
Okay.
So I didn't talk with a lot of people that time. I just chose to be silent and away from people. But when we did come back, it was another ball game entirely.
Wow.
But for me, I had read up a bit about surrogacy before going to India. I thought I knew what it entailed. My concern, just like you said, was the issue of a DNA transfer or exchange.
Yes.
And I didn't understand how someone would get pregnant and then, DNA exchange doesn't happen. So that was a concern for me.
Okay.
Another concern was that we were of different religious backgrounds. And this person who is of a different religion is going to have my baby. So how do I make sure my beliefs, I instill in my baby, because I know that the person carrying has some form of authority,
of course,
over that baby. Also, I was a bit unsure as to how to navigate the pregnancy period and ask questions about how the babies were doing.
Okay.
But God gave me a very fantastic young lady called Pooja. And she became my friend.
Okay.
And so all my fears were allayed. I had to respect her culture, her traditions,
Of course.
Her beliefs. If she was praying to
whoever.
the God I didn't interrupt her. It didn't stop me from praying for my children.
Of course.
I couldn't touch her tummy,
Yes, it's
I
not
couldn't
allowed.
It's not allowed.
Yes.
Even traditionally for them,
Yes.
it's not allowed. They are Indians are a bit private when it comes to their bodies. So every opportunity I had to see my babies grow, I enjoyed. Those were the scan days that,
The
or
days
her
you go
antenatal
to.
days.
Yes.
I was always there.
Oh.
And then the doctor is checking and I'm looking at her belly, and then sometimes I will see the baby's kick, and then she will say, ow, 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 this one is biting, and this one is... it was fun. There was one day I touched her tummy. I signaled to her and I was like, I want to feel. And she said, okay.
Oh.
But I didn't do that more than twice. I
Wow.
respected her privacy.
Okay.
And then at those moments, I'll just say a word of prayer over the babies.
children,
Yes,
children.
I'll say a word of prayer. And I'm their mom, despite their being in someone else's womb.
Yes.
And I believe my prayers worked.
I'm so pleased at how you're expressing yourself here on this, because it's one of those things that you try and avoid talking about with a mother who has been through it, but because you put out this book, it's clear that you want to share. You want to make sure that you're able to impact people.
Yes.
Now, let's talk a little bit about family and your husband's family, which is also a major concern for a lot of women. There are some women, they're ready. They would go for it, but they just don't know how the husband's family is going to take it. Their own family are probably... I've heard of some women being disowned by their own family for trying things like this. I've heard of women who are now estranged from their family members because of things like this. Now, I have to ask the sort of response and reaction you got from family when you came home.
Okay, so I'm fortunate to have family who love me. We are best friends. My siblings and I were best friends. My parents were best friends. So your upbringing matters in this sort of things.
Okay.
We've always been close. We don't hide anything from one another. And so when I was going through all that difficulty, they were concerned. Even at the point when the doctor said I would have to go through surrogacy, my younger sister volunteered.
Wow, really?
To be my surrogate.
Okay.
But she had just gotten married that time, and I was like, no, you can't do this.
Yeah.
You have to have a family of your own first.
Sure.
So it was easy carrying my folks along. For my husband's family, fortunately, they never troubled me all the while that we were.
Okay.
They didn't disturb me one bit. They also are close, and their concern is for us to be happy. At some point, one of them used to work in a fertility center, and she would always worry me and say, "Oh yeah, sis, come now, let's go and get checked." Blah 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 blah. If it's IUI, if it's IVF, and I just wasn't ready. And so when we were leaving for India, we told them that most likely we'll go through surrogacy, and they were all for it.
Amazing.
They were very supportive.
Amazing.
Always calling, always sending money, always
Beautiful.
sending food. For the extended family members, we carried them along as we deemed fit. Some we didn't even tell. They heard, some read the story, some heard me speak on TV, and they're like, we didn't know you went through something as serious as this, and I'll just smile. They were curious ones, but because I was also able to breastfeed, they just couldn't put it together, So I tell people when I counsel them, your family members very well, you know how they are. So decide who you want to tell, but don't tell them all at once. Take it at your own pace. And if you don't want to share, don't share. You don't owe anybody any explanation, so long as you and your spouse are in agreement.
I have to take you back a second there. You just said you were able to breastfeed.
Yes.
Okay, please explain.
Okay, so breastfeeding and pregnancy are two different things.
Okay.
But the way nature plans it, it happens one after the other. But even without getting pregnant, you can lactate.
Wow.
So I had to go through lactation induction. I took a lot of tablets. I took a lot of injections.
Okay.
And so when a woman has a baby, the contraction of the uterus triggers the milk
to be
release.
Yeah, okay.
The milk release. So I had to get injections that would, that would
contract
my uterus. It
That's
was painful.
oxytocin.
Oxytocin,
yes.
A most painful injection, I can tell you. So I had to be put through a course of oxytocin when the twins were born. So the treatment started before they were born.
Okay.
Like when they were like 6.5 months in the womb. And I started taking all of those medicines.
Okay.
And then at some point I had to get a breast pump and start pumping. Activating and just massaging and things like that. So by the time they were born, I had milk already.
Beautiful.
So the moment they came out, the doctor said, okay, Toyin, it's time for your oxytocin. And then my uterus started contracting and then the milk release came. So I was able to do that for a while. My children didn't they didn't like it.
They didn't like it.
They didn't. My son took to the breast for a few weeks, but his sister was not like, no. Later I realized she wasn't full.
Sure.
Sure.
A lot of parents are unaware of the fact that of course, once you bring baby to breast, you're not able to measure the amount of breast milk being given. So I also had twins.
Yes.
I'll say the natural way in comparison with what you went through. But I also had a CS where they had to massage me to activate my milk. But their first meal was actually baby formula.
Yes.
And my girls are amazing. They are smart. They're beautiful.
Intelligent. They didn't lose
girls.
Anything.
They didn't. So
I always fall sick.
No, they didn't. As long as you're doing all the right things the right way at the right time, and you read and you have the right guidance, there should not be any reason for your child to miss.
Exactly.
Really miss.
They didn't miss. They didn't miss anything. I can tell you.
So it does seem like a myth or one of those taboos. Oh, you didn't breastfeed your baby. Oh, I hear that a lot. And hey, the hour my twins turned 3 months, the hour they turned, not the day,
not
the
hour. Yes,
they turned 3 months. I stopped giving it to them.
Wow,
and they are amazing.
Wow,
yeah, we thank God.
So you can breastfeed even with surrogacy as your option.
I'm gonna take another passage now from your book, Mom at Last. And I would encourage everyone listening to hear how deep she goes into describing what she went through.
Yes, I read books, most especially educational books, once in a while spiritual books, but other novels, but that's once in a while. I do read books by Nigerians, but most times they are educational and all. Nigerian writers are trying. It's just that I think they have not received the recognition that they deserve and all. It's more like Nigerian books don't. It's rare to see Nigerian books sell outside, but they are all trying. And I think it has to get to a place where they will receive recognition even outside Nigeria. Then what they can do to improve the reading culture in Nigeria is probably, I think they have started a bit, but the world is getting digital now. So we should make most of these books available on digital platforms and all. So it can make it easier for people to read. I think there are some apps now that I think I saw one that is, I think any book, or I can't remember the name of the app, and then you can search the book, you can search the title of any book, and then you get to read it. So if Nigerian books can be done like that, it will help a great deal. Thank you.
Mom at Last, My 13-Year Journey, written by Toyin Lolu Ogunmade. Page 98. It had been a nerve-wracking day. It was 7 p.m. and I had not heard anything from the doctor. I was shaking and crying within me as I climbed the steps leading into the hospital. I had to go there myself to see what was going on. My senses were on high alert, reading the faces of the nursing staff. I had a sinking feeling, but denied it. "Come in, Toyin," Dr. Parikh said. "I'm sorry, but the test was negative. I found out 5 minutes ago and did not know how to tell you." Oh my God, I wanted to die. My second attempt at IVF had just failed. I cried uncontrollably. The doctor spent an hour calming me down, but I could not stop. I felt such shame, such humiliation, such helplessness, such pain. I had failed to get pregnant again. Would I consider donor eggs? Oh my God, could anything be worse than this? Donor eggs? I cannot carry a baby myself, and now my eggs are questionable. My husband's sperm is also questionable. I can't have a biological child of my own at age 38. It's so unfair, so unfair. God, where are you in this? How will this glorify you? I was crushed and devastated, and I couldn't stop crying. Dr. Parikh wanted me to go home with him and called his wife to prepare a room for me. I politely declined, as I wanted to be in my own space. Then he asked Sister Sally Thomas, the senior nurse, to stay with me that night just to be sure I had company. We went to my apartment and I called my husband. It was a terrible time for him too, and we were not physically together. For about a week, I was robotic, like a zombie. I lost interest in everything. I wanted my husband to come back, which was impossible as he had just left a few days before and had no visa or extra funds to visit. But I wanted to hold him and be sure I still had him, even if I couldn't have his baby. It was a tough time. I was borderline depressed, couldn't pray or read the Bible. I could only sing praise songs and listen to preachers over the television. It was only God's grace that made me survive, as I took solace in the fact that God is in control. The doctor wanted me to prepare for another cycle, but I was highly strung. He conducted a review of the 2 cycles and noticed that I presented with symptoms of polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS. He prescribed medication to help me metabolize sugar and lose weight, which he said would improve the quality of my eggs. I was still on the Ayurvedic medicines, but because we had poor fertilization rate, I insisted that he run tests to determine whether anything was genetically wrong. Doctor was not so keen on this, but to satisfy me, he asked my husband to run karyotyping as well as a fish test in Lagos. I would do mine in Ahmedabad in the FRIDG Institute, the Fridge Institute. The cost of the test in Lagos was astronomical, so we agreed Lolu would come to India. At the same time, the seeds of doubt sown by other Nigerian ladies began to grow. I asked myself whether the doctor really knew his job or if he was just going by trial and error. Consequently, I sought advice from another renowned doctor in Ahmedabad, and he practically trashed all Dr. Parikh told me. He said I was not reacting like a patient with PCOS, that I should come to his hospital, and quoted almost triple what Dr. Parikh charged. I was in a dilemma and decided not to do anything except the genetic tests and work on losing weight. I began exercising twice a day, 1 hour in the mornings between 5:30 a.m. and 6 a.m. and 1 hour in the evenings between 7:30 and 8:30 p.m. I would walk all along the road from Shaimal Chaurasta down Shilvarjani Road, flyover to Mansi. Sometimes I took the 100-foot-long route from Shaimal to and fro, walking the SG highway overlooking Caravanvati Club. Sometimes it was from the fellowship around the drive-in cinema all the way to Vastrapur Lake to Ashok Pallav Junction. on Premchand Nagar Road and then down to Shamal. Other times, it would be through satellite to Gulmaha Mall. I walked everywhere. In the mornings, I would hold a long stick to chase away the dogs, as they had a tendency to bark at even chase strangers. Having been attacked by a dog at 9 years old, I did not want a repeat incident, so I held my stick firmly. I received a lot of stares, but did not care because my eyes were on the target. I was determined to achieve it. My situation became a goal, and I exercised daily for 9 months. My diet also became more healthy, eliminating all manner of foods that could compromise my conception chances. It was my personal boot camp. After a few months, I had enough stamina to jog several times through Shiravajani Bridge. When the genetic test results came out, we were told our chances were slim, but that we should screen for genetic deformities frequently. If pregnancy was achieved, as my husband was said to have karyotyping issues, we were even asked to consider sperm donation, to which we said no. We decided to trust God to improve what we had, as the quality of gametes, that's sperm and eggs, was supposedly suboptimal, and for Him to provide us with what we didn't have, a womb, through a surrogate mother. Mom at Last, written by Toyin Lolu Ogunmade, page 98, as read by Titilayo Oyinson. Thank you to everyone that's tuned in. You're listening to the On Air Book Club podcast. My name is Titilayo Oyinson, and Toyin Lolu Ogunmade is here, the author of Mom at Last. And I have to say thank you for coming to share your story. Just tell me how you're feeling about me reading that last passage right now. Talk to me.
Mixed feelings, really. I was just sitting here, just laughing at me holding a stick and chasing those dogs. Yeah. And then walking in my mind through all of those roads. I walked everywhere. I walked everywhere just to lose weight and to reverse the PCOS condition that I had. And it worked. It worked. So, reliving good times, reliving those painful times. I'm glad that it paid off.
I'm glad it paid off too.
Yeah.
And with twins, no less. Twins. How old are the twins now?
9.5.
9.5. Girl and boy or boy?
Yes,
girl and boy. That's what we have, both the pink and blue shoe on the cover of the book. I have to say thank you for putting this together. Thank you on behalf of every mom who's been through a tough time trying to get pregnant, or even going through pregnancy and maybe even losing children. For all of them who have probably heard every stigma, every bad word, every curse from family members. You're not alone. You are not alone. If you're listening to this, you are not alone. Your story will be a point of contact for someone else who is going through this. You are not alone, and you can do this. There are many different options. There are many different types of lifeboats that God will send.
Yeah.
You just have to know which one you are jumping into.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Titi.
So, what's your Instagram handle?
That's my name, at Toyin Lolu Ogunmade.
Okay. And you have a special hashtag, Mom at Last?
Mom at Last, yes.
Mom at Last?
Yes.
So you can find out more information about that. You should also follow us as well. That's with the hashtag On Air Book Club Podcast. And, of course, follow me at TT The Dynamite. Now, this particular podcast is on africabusinessradio.com if you'd like to share this podcast with anyone. We also air on so many other amazing platforms that you'll probably see close to the link of this post. It's all about reading to find out how you connect with different stories. And as I always say, please begin to read and then proceed to read some more. Have a great day. Bye.